So let's kick things off again with what has been one of the biggest news stories in both the UK and the US for the past week, and that is the release of documents relating to the convicted sex traffickers Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, and a number of high-profile individuals, including Prince Andrew, who we should add denies all the claims made against him. Richard Kay, this week was the one where any questions over Andrew's future were finally decided.
I would say so. I mean, one step forward and two steps back constantly for Andrew. We saw him take part in the Sandringham Christmas gathering with Fergie, and people were saying nice things about the King for allowing his brother to be there. Within days, this tranche of documents has reminded us all of the allegations which are stacked up against him, and they're pretty horrendous. We learn nothing new, but the fact that they're all written down in these legal documents is incredibly damaging for him and also for the monarchy.
And as Richard alludes to there, Victoria, the claims are lurid. Do we know how Andrew is taking it?
Well, I mean, they are, as Richard also said, not new. So I think this has been less dramatic for him and the royal family than, for example, when Virginia Giuffre launched her lawsuit against him. That was a story that really had legs, and this is stuff that we have heard before. I think how he's taking it, I mean, his life has changed beyond recognition in the last 4 years or so. But I think the fact that he's still living in the Royal Lodge is a bit of an indication as to how he's taking it, because that's the last thing one of the last things that the royal family could, that he could not have, that's like a hangover from his previous status. And he clearly does want to stay there. The fact that he's there shows us that he wants to stay there. And I think it shows us maybe that I interpret that as him finding it quite difficult to accept really that his life has completely changed and things have completely changed for him.
Do you think Richard Eden, what Victoria's alluding to there, is that he's sitting in a room chaining himself to the radiator and not going? I mean, this subject is not going away, is it?
Well, his friends, and he still has some friends, they are keen to make the point that, in 2003, he signed a 75-year lease on Royal Lodge. He not only did he pay £1 million at the time, but he ploughed all his savings in and money they'd made from a previous house sale into renovating it. And he saw it was his house for life. It was his family's house. So, why should he leave over these allegations, which we should make clear are all claims? We're reporting them because they're in court documents, but, lots of them are denied. And, people are saying he made a terrible mistake in handing over the money, signing that deal with one of his accusers, Virginia Giuffre.
Well, we'll come on to that in a minute. But Richard Kay, there was a report in the Times this week from a source close to the Duke who said that blood is thicker than water and that these news claims would have no impact on his living arrangements. I mean, call me a cynic. Is this Andrew's friends getting in the defence on the front foot?
It certainly looks like he's getting the defence in first, almost boxing the King in, if you like, by reminding everybody that he is a member of the royal family, his brother is the King. Surely the argument goes they wouldn't throw him out. Well, they may not throw him out, but they would like to create, I'm told, a climate where Andrew himself does the right thing. As Victoria says, it is the last vestige of his former life, this grand house. And its name, Royal Lodge, suggests something small. It's huge. It's a mansion. It's a palace, in fact. And it is a home of a former former Queen Elizabeth's former childhood home. And there is something that sticks in the craw of the public about the Duke of York still having occupancy. But will he be booted out? I'm not entirely sure that he will, unless he were to voluntarily say, yeah, okay, I get this, I'll move somewhere more appropriate. And it would take the heat off him to a degree and also on the King.
Well, yes, Victoria, the King does risk looking a bit indecisive, and a lot of people, I imagine, will want him to act.
Well, there's a question over to what extent he can actually act, because the agreement that Andrew has is the lease agreement is with the Crown Estate. It's not directly with the King, and that's something that Buckingham Palace is quite keen to remind people of, I think, about the situation that Andrew's in. I think to a certain extent it will depend on public pressure as to what kind of pressure the monarchy sort of wants to apply to Andrew, because if this is constantly in the public consciousness and if it becomes a really big sticking point as far as optics go, then maybe there will be more pressure applied. But if it kind of fades off into the background for a while and people aren't really talking about it, maybe Andrew can stay there. But he could just choose of his own accord to go. His family hasn't ostracised him on a personal level. They've made it very clear that he's welcome at family events. But him being in that property is difficult for the monarchy. It's difficult for them and the optics. So he could choose to say, okay, I accept, it's the time to leave. And he's not doing that.
Not yet. There's also, isn't there, Richard, even the question of Sarah Ferguson. She's always been very loyal to Andrew and the family. She made it to Christmas at Sandringham this year for the first time in a long time. But as she reportedly is trying to rebuild her media career, that could complicate things, couldn't it?
Look, Sarah still lives with Prince Andrew at Royal Lodge. It's big enough to have sort of separate wings. They're still very close. Yes, they're separated. There's always been speculation about whether they would get married again, and she's the sort of breadwinner of the family now, so she's been very busy writing her books, doing all this sort of thing. And I think people, yes, she's a bit tarnished by the association, but people admire her loyalty. And look, this is a woman who, when she divorced Prince Andrew, she got hardly any money, very small settlement, so there was always that duty to look after her, and she's never said a bad word about the royal family. Just give her some credit compared with Harry and Meghan that have, been making a career out of saying appalling things. But she has shown loyalty, throughout her life.
It's interesting, isn't it? Richard Kay.